Greetings, fellow investigators, and welcome back to our video podcast, Into the Darkness, where my friends and I play the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. I'm your host, Tom Rayleigh. The campaign is Horror on the Orient Express. It's available from Chaosium. I'm the Keeper of Arcane Lore, and this is episode 47. We're not going to have a recap tonight. We'll do that after this part. But without any further delays, let's continue our journey into the darkness. All right, so after the events that took place in Vinkovici, and you're traveling on now, heading towards uh, Belgrade. Um, you have the opportunity to take a look at the book that you got from the library archive treasure trove. Uh, it is called the Narratio de Tilius Corvus, the account of Tilius Corvus. Uh, you have the book in your hand. It's old. It's partly illuminated, but you can begin.
So everyone get a beverage and we'll gather around and see what this text has to tell us. The Narratio de Tilius Corvus. Poets say that peace is a prison to a true fighting man, and old soldiers are filled with regret. They say dying on the battlefield is how such men should meet their end. But the old soldiers of the 40s Falcones know better. The screams and blood, the mud and hunger, the exhaustion, horror, and loss, these are not glorious things. No man loves peace more than a soldier because no other men truly understand war. Poets are idiots. Peace is wonderful, and the soldiers are enjoying every day of it. The city changes daily, gaining new buildings, wider streets, and stronger defenses. Monuments gathered from across the empire are erected. The ringing of 1,000 hammers fills the air as Constantine's new capital races towards completion. For 6 years, the soldiers have been stationed here, the longest they have been posted in one place for the 15-odd years served under Constantine's banner. Soldiering is a young man's game, and youth is far behind them. Once the construction is done and Nova Roma is officially opened, they will be honorably discharged from the 40s Falcones. This highly decorated, elite auxiliary unit of advanced scouts has been their home and family for many years. As young men, they invaded Italy to fight Maximinus and spent their prime years fighting Licinius. Now, in the twilight of their military career, they keep the peace between construction crews in what is about to become the new capital of the Roman Empire. This is the account of the events surrounding those most noble and brave of Constantine's soldier scouts, the mighty falcons, the 40s Falcones, and how they did attempt to keep back the darkness from the land. In the Roman year 1082 ab urbe condita, on the 12th of March, less than a month before the grand commencement of the new Rome, Constantine's city, an order was delivered to Tribune Comites Tilius Corvus, a many times decorated veteran of numerous campaigns, much admired and respected commander of the 40s Falcones, to gather an elite group of his finest soldiers and report to the Curia. Tilius Corvus was loved by his men. He had fought beside them and faced death together with them dozens of times. He always looked out for them and loved them in return. He had, on a few occasions, disobeyed orders when the situation meant certain death for his men, refusing to sacrifice them, and yet somehow he managed always to get away with it. Corvus many times led them to victory when they should have known only defeat. He rose through the ranks in mud, blood, and dust beside those men serving with him. His title, Comites, which means Order of the Companions, was granted to him by the Emperor Constantine himself, and marks him as a senior regimental commander. Tilius Corvus is a natural-born Roman citizen, tracing his family roots back to the province of Gaul. In appearance, he is a tall, broad-shouldered man, clean-shaven with light brown hair. He has only recently begun to wear his hair long as his discharge date grows near. Corvus is a strikingly handsome man with sharp gray eyes and skin tanned by countless hours spent under the sun. While he is still very fit and dangerous in a fight, he is approaching his 40th birthday. He is unmarried and without children, as a life devoted to military service has left little time for family. But with his retirement approaching, he has begun to spend time with the Lady Eudocia, a wealthy widow with two sons. He plans to marry her after retiring from the military, and so Tilius Corvus went out into Rome's new capital to find his chosen men.
So Tilius, I'll be playing Tilius. Tilius comes looking for you. You are in various places around the city. Uh, Construction is going on of the great fountains. Um, there are gardens being planted in various parts of the city. There are tiled paveways that are beautiful. Um, there's going to be this huge ceremony in a month's time to dedicate the city to Constantine. So everything is going well. You are well versed in um, how to do construction, how to. You're not yourself doing the work. You're commanding the men and overseeing them. You're like the foreman. Um, so he comes to Galerius Evotus first. Um, he is, I believe, the oldest of the Fortis Falcones. Um, um, what are you working on at the moment, Galerius?
These boys that they have trying to assemble this, get the final, this fountain finished up. They are lackadaisical, undisciplined. So I'm kind of just um, having them, all these workers standing at attention um, until they learn to listen.
So you're standing there. Uh, a horse rides up, and you see Tilius Corvus hop down from it, and he approaches you. Um, and I don't know if they still did this. But, Hail, Galerius.
Hail Corvus.
How goes things?
They go slow, too slow.
Well, I'm afraid to interrupt you at the moment. You probably have a subordinate who take over your position. We are being called to the Curia to speak with the governor. Um, he may have a mission for us. I don't know what it is yet. Will you join us?
I, of course, I would never turn down an order from the governor. You get these men in line. If this fountain's not done by the time I'm back, there will be hell to pay. Understood?
Yes, sir. He then takes you, Galerius, with him. You ride out and you come upon two men that you are also familiar with, members of the Fortunis of the Mighty Falcons. Um, you know them as Lorenz, a German who's legendary with his skills in the spear, and Nabadius, a Greek who's huge and working on something very heavy. Your nickname for him is the Bear. And likewise, Tilius talks to the two of them and asks them to join. And the three of you then go on from there. He then comes up as you ride. He comes up to Emmerich of the Suvi. Hail, Emmerich.
Hail, good Corvus.
I assume you're in good spirits.
Great spirits. The road work is going along pretty smoothly.
I
Why?
need to ask you if you would be willing to join us on a an assignment. It hasn't been given yet, but the Curia is where we are headed, and the governor wishes to speak with us.
For you, Tilius Corvus, I will march to the end of the low land.
And so they move on from there. They find Melonius Canmi, who's working, and they ask him the same. Melonius, will you join us?
I will indeed.
And so it goes. They find Asinius Ravila. Um, how are you holding up, Ravila?
All is well, Corvus. You putting a posse together? Is there a criminal on the loose, or?
I don't know, actually. The governor has decided to call us together. Um, Perhaps one last assignment before we retire for good, before the grand commencement. Will you join us?
It sounds more engaging by far than watching men dig wells. I'm with you.
And then
Thank you.
lastly, they find Belisir. Uh, Belisir, the company is pulling itself together again, possibly for one last mission. Will you come with us?
Of course, one last mission. What soldier wouldn't want to have one last mission so he could regale his family with stories of it?
And so the six of you travel towards the Curia, the Capitol building in the city. It's down towards the end, looking off into the Sea of Marmara, and you arrive. The date is March 12th, 330 AD. And I'm sorry, there are more than five of you. There are, or more than six of you. There are eight of you. Forgot about Lorenz and the other guy. So upon arriving at the building, um, you are ushered in. It's a beautiful building. It's a brand new building. It's built for the commencement. Um, there is an aide. He escorts you through the halls, through vast halls going down, past various guards to the offices of the Magister Militum, the overall commander of the regional military forces. And as you're walking with him, you're all very military, and you're all looking very proud of your achievements. And Corvus kind of whispers sideways to you with a glance. This seems awfully unusual. We don't usually come this far into the building. Um, there is an aide seated outside the office doors, and he rises as he sees you approach, and he says, "Tribuni, Comitus Tilius Corvus, please enter." And he opens the door, but he quickly closes it before you can go in. You are left outside the door. After a few moments, the aide comes back out and sits himself back down behind his station.
Do we hear anything from behind the door?
It's a pretty heavy door. You can't hear anything. Maybe vaguely you can hear some noises.
Tell me, Emmerich, do you plan to stay in the city after your retirement, or where do you plan to go from this? I'm wondering where my friends will be.
Out in the country on a farm.
Hmm.
I'm not a fan of the big cities. However, these roads are pretty impressive, and from what I've seen, the fountains and the wells, they're all quite marvelous features. But give me a good farm, that's where I'll be.
I understand. Yes, hunting is definitely where I find the most peace. Not a lot of game where this many people have been gathered.
I'm quite likely to stay here. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the aide is sitting there. He's doing something perhaps, say, writing out a scroll. He occasionally glances up at you and looks around and then goes back to what he's doing.
Do you know what we've been summoned here for? Aid?
He looks up at you and he says, well, with respect, gentlemen, I am not at liberty to say.
Understood.
Is there a meeting in there now, and that's what we're waiting for?
He looks up at you and then just back down. Do you want to use you can actually use status or fast talk. Because you're obviously much higher in rank than he is.
Or a gladius to the oh, sorry.
And a swift execution.
Sure. I'm actually, despite my learning and experience, my status is not that high, but his is, it's an opposed roll I've got him.
Status.
Oh, 22. So
Nice.
regular success.
Um, he gets that sort of look on his eye, like, well, I'll tell you this in confidence. He says that a courier came yesterday from one of the outer forts in Lydia. After the magister read the message, he had the man imprisoned in a solitary cell, and he sent me to personally deliver orders to Tilius Corvus, to Tribuni, to Tilius Corvus.
Hmm.
Do you know this courier? Is he a man of good standing?
I don't know him. Never seen him before.
Do you know if there's something afoot in Lydia that would cause such?
I've no idea. Obviously, something must be up.
Yes.
And it's quite unusual that the magistrate just had him immediately imprisoned.
Yes. Very strange to imprison just a courier. I assume the courier didn't read the message, so must have been very grave to want to isolate him.
So a few minutes go by and the doors open and Corvus pokes his head out and he says, come in. The Magister Militum will address us all.
File in.
So inside the office, there is a man of about 30 years of age. He carries himself with a military bearing, but has recently gotten thick around the middle. Magister Militum Alexis Gemelius knows the business end of a spear, but has spilled more ink than blood in the last 6 years. Greetings, hail.
Hail.
Greetings, Magister. Very mysterious business.
He seems to at this point only talk towards Tilius, but he says, what I'm about to tell you, you must keep in the strictest confidence. You must never speak of it, ever. A courier arrived from the Gillian outpost, a few leagues west of Sardis, in the nearby province of Lydia. The man reported that a mysterious illness has broken out in the villages in the area. The sickness is blamed on a satanic cult. The cult must be put down, whether it is actually spreading the plague or not. The unknown illness caused weakness, fever, muscle pain, and a line of sores running along the spine. Many of those who contracted it died. Centenarius Longinus is the commander in charge of Gilead. He is having difficulties keeping the villagers from fleeing the area, and several of his men have contracted the illness as well. What I need is an accurate report on what is going on around the Gillian outpost. If there is a plague, it must be contained. I will send several thousand men into Lydia if I have to. No one infected is to be allowed to reach the Lydian capital, Sardis. Um, Tribuni Comitis Corvus has total authority in this matter. He may take command of the Gillian outpost and utilize their garrison of 100 men as he sees fit. A ship is waiting to take you across the Straits of Cyzicus in Mysia, where they can pick up horses and any further supplies that they need that you need. Uh, I have documents that give you that ensure full cooperation with any official, civic authorities, or military that you encounter. But there is no official written orders for what you are doing. This needs to be a secret. No one is ever to speak of it. The new capital is bringing much opportunity for men of worth. Those who undertake the mission will be rewarded with land grants, building interests, business partnerships, or anything else that I feel is reasonable. Do you have any questions?
You said they were wounds along the spines of victims,
That's what the courier said.
and you've imprisoned him as a form of quarantine.
Exactly.
Will he be coming back with us?
Only if he won't be coming back with you. I am keeping him under quarantine for at least 2 weeks. If he proves that he does not have the disease, then I'll release him.
Did he have a description of the course of it? Does it strike in 3 days or 2 weeks or?
I believe he's just a common courier, so he doesn't have any knowledge medical. You'll have to ask that of Longinus when you get there.
How soon do we depart?
There is a boat waiting for you at the dock.
Wonderful.
If that plague were to erupt in Constantinople just a few weeks before the grand commencement, do you have any idea the way the reputation of Constantine would be damaged and destroyed? So it has to be stopped no matter what.
The gravity of the situation is well understood.
Good. I take it that you will carry out your duties then.
It'll get done.
Did the cult have a name, or
I
do we
have
know what they
more
worship?
information than what I've told you.
Very well. We'll be off at once.
He dismisses you and he wishes you the best of luck. But as you leave the room, Corvus stays for a moment, and as Corvus finally comes out of the door, and he comes over to you, there's guards that are going to follow you, take you out of the building. But he whispers to you. He says, "Not a word until we're outside." All right. So once you get outside, you find a place where you can speak privately. Corvus says, "We are ordered to go directly to the docks and set out at once. But I know that the ship is not going to leave until after dark. So that really gives us a few hours before we need to be on board. If any of you need to make arrangements, say goodbye to anyone, now would be the time. My orders," and he looks upset, the way you've seen him look upset when he's been given orders that he doesn't really like very much. He says, "My orders were to bring not just my best men, but also the ones nearing retirement." He says, "I am so sorry for getting you involved in this, but I didn't know what he was going to ask us to do." So I'll tell you this now. If any of you don't want to go, I suggest you flee the city. You go off and live your life comfortably in some remote part of the empire. And I'll never tell him that you didn't come along.
Such an action is unthinkable.
No.
We're not retired yet. We have a
Yes, but
duty to Constantine and the Legion.
it's true. Absolutely true.
Agreed.
But
I
you know
second
how
that.
I feel about you all. And this may be more than just our last mission. This may be the last thing that we do. So we have a few hours. I've already said my goodbyes to Lady Eudocia, who's interested in a drink.
I would enjoy one, but first I must meet with a woman that is special to me.
Okay. So those of you who go with him to a tavern to drink, um, Belisir goes away. Um, Lorenz and Nabadius also depart. Uh, Anybody else want to go and say goodbye to someone? Or
I've said my goodbyes already. I usually do before a mission. Just
Yes,
to,
I also say my goodbyes before, so I will just go drink.
Because there's a medical issue involved, and I have some skill with potions, but I was not on an assignment that was particularly medical. Maybe I will go to the equivalent of an apothecary and get a fresh set of nettles and whatnot,
sure, absolutely.
and meet you for drinks after.
So you drink with him, you reminisce a bit, um, and he's very jovial. He wants you to, feel at ease. But you can tell that there's a little bit, that he regrets the fact that here we are on the verge of retirement, and we're probably being sent on to a disease. Disease is scarier than any war. You'd rather fight. It's not something you can fight with a sword. Um, Eventually, Belisir and Asinas rejoin them towards the evening, and you head down towards the docks. And the ship is called the Andromeda. It is a small government-owned merchant ship, um, and it's just about dusk, and you wait there for maybe half an hour or so, and Lorenz and Nabidas don't show up, and Corvus as well. I can't really blame them. And he says a little prayer, and he hopes that whatever they do in their life, they're okay. Uh, and then the Andromeda slips quietly out of the harbor at midnight and sets sail south across the Sea of Marmara. So it's now the next day. No, I'm sorry. It takes 3 days to sail across the Sea of Marmara to arrive at Cyzicus. The voyage is uneventful. Corvus and the mighty Falcons, you arrive in the port city of Cyzicus. Corvus marks the day as March 15th and points out to you that it is the Ides of March. Ides of March.
Good omen or other, so it is.
Cyzicus is an ancient Hellenic city. It is a large center of commerce. Tilius Corvus wishes to make haste in departing the city for the Gillian outpost. He has prepared a requisition list of equipment and provisions for the local military supply officer while he was on board the Andromeda, and he consults you. Is there anything else that you need?
Not that I can think of.
Rations, water.
We've got all that, yeah.
Yeah.
But if you want something else, a new sword, whatever. Um, so it takes a few hours for that to be filled. But once you've got that, you've all got horses. Um, you it says here you can bring anything that you like as long as it's not catapults or Greek fire.
Oh, man.
Damn, that's what I wanted to bring.
No elephant guns or dynamite, Rome style.
Maybe some rope. Maybe we could use rope and grapples. Maybe.
Well, and you also have enough time.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, rope.
Yeah,
You have enough
rope's
time for a hot meal and a bath.
Nice.
It's been 3 days
Excellent.
on the ship.
Yeah. It's just starting to smell good.
All right, so we'll say as you're there, say getting a hot meal, taking a bath, and so forth. Um, Everybody do luck rolls.
Fail.
Okay.
Good
Those
start.
of you who failed, there's a couple times that you were approached by other military soldiers. Nobody that you know, but they know your rank. And they're quite, you're elite. They're quite interested. So what brings you to this part of the country?
A good soldier sticks to his scope of duty.
You're on a mission. What's your mission?
We're looking for people that talk too much.
So you're going to choose to keep quiet. All right. So once your supplies are pulled together and you are on horseback, uh, Tilius leads you southeast to into central Lydia. Um, you travel for 3 days, passing through mountains and valleys and finding food and shelter each night in quaint agrarian villages. Um, the first night goes very well. It's a pleasant time of year. It's not too cold. Uh, the sky is clear. The flowers are blooming. Things are really picking up. Second day isn't bad either. It's another day going through the countryside. On the third day, which is March 18th, a steady light rain falls throughout the day. But today, when you encounter villagers, they seem kind of nervous at the sight of you.
Ha.
Um, some of them literally back away, back into their houses when they see you.
Is anybody on this? Anybody still outside?
Maybe a few people, but they seem, they're working on their gardens, their farms, and stuff like that.
Do any of them
I'll
see?
just give a you just pointing to some man outside of his house.
Yes, soldier.
This is I expected the rain to be the coldest thing today, but you folks around here don't seem too pleased at our presence. What is the matter?
You're you're heading in the wrong direction. There's there's sickness in that direction. You shouldn't go that way. You should go
Sickness?
back.
Have you seen it?
No.
Just heard of it? Anybody come by this way from the wrong direction?
No, nobody. No, no.
Any strange travelers other than us by night?
He looks visibly shaken when you say that to him, and he's like, "Oh, no, no. It's quite quiet out here in the country, and um, it's not healthy in that direction." And then he quickly tries to turn and run
I
into
want
his
to
house.
grab him.
Well, you're on horseback, so you can hop off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If once he sees you moving towards him, he stops where he is, and just waits. He doesn't want you to attack him.
I want to roll persuade
Okay.
and be like, we're soldiers of the Empire. We are here to protect you. It is in your best interest to tell us what we need to know in order to protect you. So, is there anything you might want to revise about what you said about no other strange travelers by night?
Um, he looks around. Uh, Oddly enough, he looks very much at his house and looks back at you, and he says he keeps his head bowed, and he's like, "No, no, there's nothing."
Is
I'm
the
gonna roll
duty of
insight to
every,
see if he's
yeah,
lying to me.
yeah,
He's definitely holding something
yeah,
Yeah.
back,
So
but he's holding it back out of. He looks terrified.
yeah.
right. Well, I'm gonna grab him at this point by the shoulder and kind of
Mhm.
like make him look at me.
He doesn't resist, sir. We're all afraid because of this disease.
So that's understandable, citizen. But it's the duty of every citizen to provide provisions to the soldiers, and we would like to that defend you, and we'd like to come in and help you pack some provisions for us.
Listen, that's you don't need to come in the house. But if you're going to go in that direction, watch out. Be careful.
I look towards his house and I look back towards him.
What are what are we watching out
What's
for?
what are yeah.
Damn,
Enough with being them. Who's them?
we don't know. But we've been warned.
By who?
Damn,
You've been warned by them to.
keep our mouths shut.
Mhm.
Where are they?
That direction. That's where they come from.
How often do they come?
Men in robes. I don't know. They don't come. They just come sometimes. It's
Done anything?
just started the last week or so.
What do they do?
We've all been threatened.
What do they do when they come?
They threaten. That's what they do.
Are any of them here now?
No, but I don't know. I mean, there's woods and trees, and we can't. I've got a family. I can't take my chance. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And he sort of backs away from you. And says, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Be careful. Be careful. God go with you." And he goes into his house, and you can hear him bar the door.
Well, perhaps it's worth waiting out this rain somewhere nearby, see if these threateners return.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk with one of them.
Well, I'd say we're losing daylight, Corvus says. He says, we need to push on. We need to get to the outpost.
Is that within a day's march?
Yeah, it should be. We should see it in a few hours.
And keep an eye out in the meantime for men in robes.
Yeah.
I personally trust in chainmail rather than robes to protect me.
Well, I mean, anybody who's foolhardy to put their trust in Satan be foolhardy enough to face us without chainmail or face
Still,
us at all.
still, be ready for anything. Be ready for an ambush. I don't think from the villagers. I think from something that's scaring the crap out of them.
We're military. You can say shit, Corvus.
It's Copria. um, so you move on, and after an hour and a half or so, you come up over a small hill, and you can see down into the valley there is an outpost. Uh, it's fairly well fortified. It has stone walls around it. Um, there are I don't know what you call them, like things on the corners of the outpost where you can see that there are ballista
Mhm.
that are up there. There is also kind of a small tent city built up around the outside, at least a dozen large tents, um, though you can't really. They're all about 50 yards from the actual outpost, but from your perspective, they seem, you know, they're there in front.
Are they military tents that we're used to, or are they more like merchant civilian tents?
They are military tents.
Mhm.
The outpost itself, though, looks large enough where it could hold maybe 150 soldiers. It's not tiny.
And the activity looks normal. There are men in the towers. There
You
are.
don't see much of anything outside of the fort, except you do occasionally see people moving around by the tents. People moving around by the tents are not dressed as soldiers.
Hmm. I wonder
I
if they're
wonder if people have flocked here for safety, if they're
refugees from the
they're
disease, or
or if they've turned the fort into quarantine.
The people we see meandering about the tents, they are not all dressed the same, are they?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, let's approach cautiously. These people may be sick.
Indeed.
So as you are approaching, um, when you are perhaps within 200 feet of the outskirts of that, um, you see the gates open and four men on horses in military uniform come riding out directly towards you. Um, they ride up to you and they give you a hail, and they say, we've been waiting for you. Uh, Please accompany us. We'll take you into the fort."
Who are these people gathered outside?
Refugees, the sick, um, people fleeing from farther uh, east.
Mhm.
And as you're riding, one of them says, um, "We've we've been waiting for you. You're obviously advanced scouts. When are the others getting here?"
The others will
Oh,
be sent if when needed.
"Well, we need them now. I mean." Antilius interrupts and he says, "Oh, they're 3 or 4 days behind us, but they'll be here," which is a lie.
yeah.
But you also notice that the soldiers, although they are uh, disciplined in adversity, you can tell they're exhausted at the same time.
Yeah.
So they bring you into the fort. Um, you can see that there are quite a few other soldiers around. They seem suddenly to be, their morale seems to pick up when they see you. Uh,
Mm.
and they wave. They're quite excited that relief is on the way. Um,
Hmm.
you are taken then to See, there are just as described, but the outpost is a small military fort with a 10-foot tall stone wall, and it's got ramparts all the way around. Um, there are barracks inside. There are a handful of other buildings, and you are then taken to the garrison. The structure itself looks sound and fully stocked. Um, but there is obviously wear and tear on it. So you are taken to see the Centaurius Longinus, the commander of the garrison. You're ushered in, and he sees you and he says, "Oh, welcome, welcome. Please come inside." And he tells his other soldiers to stay outside. And he says, "Why did they send elites?" Um, where are
Why
the
are you?
other soldiers?
Well, we were here to assess whether or not the other soldiers were needed. What is going on out here? That you need that your men are so exhausted.
Look, we normally have 100 men stationed here. At the moment, 15 of them are sick, four are missing, and nine are dead.
Hmm.
So we're down some men. This plague seems to have hit us. They're actually quarantined out in those tents with a bunch of other villagers. We are completely overwhelmed, and we are quite demoralized. Uh, it's really hard right now.
What can you tell me about this plague?
Well, uh, for months, I've received reports that there is some sort of cult of robed zealots that they call themselves the Flayed. They threaten local villagers and they extort supplies from them. Um, but during that time, I sent out a number of scouts to see if they could find anything, and they found no sign of any cultists. But shortly after I did that, the villagers started getting reprisals from somebody, obviously the cult. Um, right around that same time, one of the villagers claimed that his wife had been bitten by some sort of blood sucking bat. Um, uh, she died soon after, and we are since calling this the Valerian Plague
Hmm.
after Saint Valerius. Uh, the victims, uh, they get a high fever and then they die. But in the process, they get bloody wounds all over their bodies, and they get severe wounds along their spine.
Hmm.
And as it progresses, their skin actually splits open, and that's why we're calling it the Valerian Plague, since Saint Valerius was skinned alive.
Uh,
How
hmm.
long does it take from onset to that extreme event?
A few days, uh, and it's quite painful. The person usually is in very great pain during that time.
Do any
Um,
recover?
so far, a few people have recovered if they can last long enough. Most of them don't. The villagers of Sirens and Alcati are completely depopulated at this point. Um, my scouts report finding blood and corpses everywhere. Some of the dead were plague victims. Some of the other ones seem to have been flayed alive. Um, and about the same time that started, dozens of refugees, many of them sick, started arriving at the outpost seeking protection. Um, The refugees from the city, from the village of Kaliki, uh, have told us wild stories about attacks by Satan worshippers and blood sucking demons. I don't believe the stories because hallucinations also seem to go with this disease. However, I sent out a reinforced detachment, um, and they were ambushed. Many of my men were injured or killed, and some contracted Valerian plague. Uh, I sent out a 4-man patrol just yesterday, and they have not returned. I think they're missing. So, what do we do now?
Hmm.
We need to find, as you began the process of these rogue individuals, I think that their activities and the cause of the plague seem rather interlinked. Of course, they're not going about their daily lives dressed in a way that we can identify them, which means that it's a matter of my expertise. We need to start interrogations.
Well, the the plague camp is out there. Um, I wouldn't touch anything. Um, there's our local physicians out there, Abrax. He seems to have not contracted the disease. He's doing his best to take care of the sick, but he's quite respected. He's a
Yeah.
medical scholar.
Uh,
In the
and
meantime, we can get you set up.
what direction the four that most recently have gone missing, and what direction did were they going?
Everything is east of this
East.
outpost.
And
Oh.
the suspects, the suspicious ones that are robed, are they dressed similarly or just any type of robe?
Yes, I've been told they dress in red robes.
It's just specifically red. And is there any symbols that they carry about with them, or
Not that I know of.
so just red robes? All right.
Hmm. Dressing.
Well, Sinulus, I'd like to look at a couple of the sick in the tents outside, and you can begin your questions there. I suppose, what hour is it?
We'll say it's maybe 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
And Sirens and Alcati are nearby villages that are totally abandoned.
Correct.
I'd like to see one of the abandoned villages. How long a ride is that?
Probably a few hours.
So that's not out of the question for today.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see how these initial examinations and interrogations go.
Well,
We shouldn't write out to one of these places that's been wiped out without all 5 of us.
And I agree.
Yeah, we're 6.
I assume Corvus is going to remain here as
No, he'll come with you.
he'll come with us. Okay, so the 6 of us.
well, while you're conducting the interrogations, I'm going to not head to the village, but scout around the perimeter and a little down the road, see what terrain we're dealing with.
I'll come with you, Belsar.
I appreciate
Careful,
that.
if there have been ambushes. So
Yes, that's why we'll stay close, but they'll have to be quite well hidden to sneak past me.
all right. So you're going to go to the tents? Okay.
And I'm going. I'm going to go with him as well.
Okay. So the three of you, leave the you get all settled in first of all for all of you. You're just staying in the barracks with other men. Um, but you all leave the gates together, except Belisir and Emmerich. Are you going on horseback?
Um, I'm gonna say no. I'm more comfortable moving through the woods and being stealthy than riding a horse.
Okay.
Then I will go on foot as well.
So you're going to go stealthily and see what you can
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
see anything. All right.
And it's
So while you
shiny.
guys are doing that, the other three, you go down to the tents. There is an awful smell coming from the area of the tents, decayed meat sort of smell. And occasionally there's an even stronger sort of rotten smell that wafts over the area. Um, when you get to the tents, they're divided into two widely separated sections. There is a refugee camp and a hospital area. There are at least 40 refugees from Kaliki uh, that are currently in the camps. Those are the people you might have seen moving around from a distance. Um, uh, and there are maybe 20 or so people who are infected with Valerian plague. There are 15 infected legionnaires. They're housed in the largest tent that is set up as a kind of a plague camp. And you can see a gentleman walking about who is dressed like you'd expect a physician to dress. He's tall, he's wiry, looks like he might be 70 years old.
Mm.
So he's walking around, but he's quite spry.
Yes, of course, I want to speak to Dr. Brax.
He sees you and immediately comes over to where you are, and he says, "Well, you probably don't want to be in here. These people are quite ill."
Yes, Brax, I am Asinius Revila. I am the medicus of this group, the
Ah,
Falcones.
ah, good,
Uh,
good that you've rushed here too. I rushed here from Sardis myself once I heard that there was something going on.
what can you
Uh,
tell me of this disease? It sounds unlike anything I'm familiar with.
it's like nothing I've ever seen myself. Um, well, let's see. We're not sure. We don't know whether it is actually a disease or not, or possibly some sort of venom that's being transmitted by bites.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the symptoms don't start for a couple of days after the infection. And once they begin, they continue for exactly 6 days, um, which strikes me as very, very strange.
Yes. It
The
doesn't
early
matter whether it's a
symptoms,
child or an adult or a man or a woman.
correct, yes.
Yeah.
The early symptoms are high fever, weakness, fatigue, sensitivity to light, and some confusion. Um, the later ones are debilitating pain, madness, and open skin lesions forming along the length of the spine. Once the patients reach that point, I keep them sedated with poppy nectar out of mercy, of course. 4 in 10 people with Valerian plague die from it, usually the old, the frail, or the very young. Um, if the patient survives past 6 days, they slowly recover. The skin lesions of the ones who succumb to the Valerian plague become a continuous open sore, and care has to be taken when handling the bodies, or the skin will simply slip off of the bodies. Um, I'm unsure what to do about the dead, whether they should be buried, burned, or entombed. Um, burning the bodies could, in fact, spread the plague. Uh,
No.
we just don't know. Buried bodies could taint the soil. Um, so for now, we're piling them all in a ditch and covering them with an oiled sackcloth. Um,
I
these
assume that's what the
stories
smell is
also,
coming from.
yeah, well, the smell comes more from those who are infected and still alive. The bodies themselves seem to somewhat lose their odor. Uh, Oddly enough, there are no flies that will touch them.
Hmm.
I don't think that the stories of monsters or bats or demons or anything like that are worth looking into. They're just the delusions of uneducated
But you did say
villagers.
something to Asinius just now about bites. No?
We don't quite know. They definitely have some of the characteristics of bites, like snake bites or insect bites, but the where this occurs, they get very necrotic very quickly. The skin pulls back and they bleed.
I appreciate your warnings of caution, but how long have you been tending to these people?
Oh, I've arrived here only a week or so ago.
Asinius, I mean, you are wiser in medical matters than I am, but if this man has been with these people handling this disease, if it could spread but in a manner that's not a bite, he would have contracted it by now, you would think.
Oh, disease is such a fickle, God decided sort of thing. If the gods say you'll be, I've been people who work with lepers for 15 years and never have a single pock. Others have only to meet one in the street and they're stricken down days later. I'm sure Abrax is being fastidious, and he warned us. It might just, and sometimes it's a fault in one's own blood that makes one susceptible. The 6 days thing is exceptionally peculiar, though, because depending on one's overall health beforehand, a disease can take 3 or 8 or 20 days, just depending on the individual.
Well, I mean, seems to me to be no natural God knowing disease, if that makes any form of sense. I guess what I'm getting at, Asinius, is I fear that an overabundance of caution will delay us unnecessarily. You need to get to the root of this and kill the tree as fast as possible.
The
I think
doctor,
yeah.
if the is the doctor still with you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He says, well, the refugee camp over there, you can at least maybe I have all my time spent here, but maybe you can glean some more information from
That's
the
gonna leave
soul
Asinius
the
with
people there.
you, I think. Look at the sick, see what you can find out. I mean, my specialty is with the living. So, Melonius, would you rather look at the sick or help me organize uh, some routine interrogations in the refugee camp?
Well, as much as I would like to check on the sick, I will help you with the routine
Okay. Let's jump to the
interrogation.
let's jump to the other two. So Belisir and Emmerich, you are making your way a little farther down the road. But as you left the camp and you're walking, um, the path sort of curves a little bit towards the east, and as it curves, you see that behind the camp, uh, the behind the fort, behind the camp, there is a large, what looks like an earthen. At first, you think an earthen fortification, but in fact, it is a ditch that has been dug. And you can see that there seems to be some sort of like oil canvas that's hiding something back there. Um, it's been thrown over the ditch, and you're not sure what it is.
Mhm. Okay.
Suspect that might be bodies, perhaps.
It could be anything. Maybe it's a a trap. So if people start to assault, they could set it on fire. But let's check it out. And of course, not walking on the path as we're scouting because that would be a
Sure.
horse. But yeah, I mean, I'll make my way over there. Of course, scanning for movement. And once I make it over there, I'll take my what do I have? I'll take my short sword and kind of try and lift the oilcloth.
Okay. So you move over to it, you lift it up, and indeed there are numerous corpses that have been laid, one after the other into the ditch. Um, they're quite horrific. Um, some of them seem to have had the skin on their bodies sloughed off, though oddly you don't see any of this sloughed off skin. Um, I think you can do a sanity roll just to see so many gross bodies.
I'm sure I'm good with that. Yep, pass.
Okay. Just maybe
Oh,
take, yeah, you're hardened. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen.
How'd you do,
what
Emmerich?
what does harden mean? Do I get to roll with advantage?
No, I was
Uh,
just going to say he sees
you
them, but he just sneers.
Oh, okay. Well, I rolled really badly, like
Just
90.
take one.
Okay.
You do notice, however, that there is no real scent of decay,
hmm.
and there are no flies. You'd think that all this nasty, rotting meat would be covered in flies, but it's not.
So does the meat look like it's rotting, or does it look like it's almost been like I
Yeah,
I
not.
I
No. Some of the
yeah
bodies look like they're deteriorating, but they're not smelling.
yeah
And
so
some of them look like they were in full clothing when they
hmm,
died, um, which is still there.
right
But
now I'm a hunter, so I would know how to prepare meat to preserve it. Do I get the feeling that like they've been salted or
uh-uh.
to preserve it? No.
Looks like they've just been laid
Very
here, but you can do a spot hidden for me.
very curious. Oh God. No.
Ooh, 17.
No.
All right. Well, when you're looking closer, there's something that you notice, Emmerich. There seems to be some sort of a trail leading out of where the bodies are. You'd think if it were like a downhill slope that liquids might be draining in that direction, but you don't really see any indication that there's pools of blood or water or anything like that. And yet the weeds and the grass and the stuff at the bottom of the ditch leading out of the ditch and into the forest, it seems like there's definitely something that's been moving. Um, there are definitely blood stains on the grass, and as if something were dragged out of the ditch and into the woods.
Seeing the path through the grass and the grass bending in a particular direction, indicating the direction of the motion, I look around the grassy field. Are there other trails leading into the pit, or is it just this one trail?
Well, you can't tell if it's just one thing that did it, but there's just the one trail going
Just the Okay, so
out.
it's not like it's tons of traffic going back and forth.
Right. And it's coming from the pit going into the woods.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm pointing all of this out to you, good sir.
Ah,
And that's also in the direction of the villages that have been abandoned.
Yeah.
come we should follow this. Perhaps the answer will be discovered soon, and Nana will be in my arms again.
Let us go.
Just before you leave, I'd like you to do listen notes.
Certainly. Just having a helmet on makes you hear all the better.
Fucking yeah, no.
Ooh, 22. Wow.
Good thing I brought you, Emmerich.
Emmerich, your sharp senses, you are used to an attack. It's not an attack, but just as you turn to move towards the woods, you hear a noise from behind you, from under that tarp where the bodies are. Something wet and moving around.
Yeah, I don't like that. Okay, there's something out there. Right there. In the foliage.
In the pit?
No. In the pit. Where the tarp is.
Oh yeah, down there. In the pit. Foliage pit, after a while.
Yes. Well,
I peer more closely. Do I see anything? Is anything at all?
Well, you're reluctant, of course, to get too close because it's nasty. But it's
I'm
almost
not going to climb into it.
Right. You're not sure. It's like coming from in amongst the bodies, or maybe underneath the bodies, down in the bottom of the trench.
Yeah, I keep my distance, but I don't want to leave. Something's moving down there. It might be what's crawling out at night.
Yeah, now that he's pointed it out, I'm gonna start listening and trying to being a very skilled tracker and having pretty good natural world. I'm trying to go, okay, hey, does it sound like something large, like human size, or maybe?
No, but it's a noise that sends shivers up your spine because you can't really identify it. It would be this kind of noise that a large snake would make if it were rolling around in oil. That sort of slick, slippery, slimy sort of sound. It's not really loud, but it's down there in the pit. Maybe something underneath them is fiddling with the bodies, like bugs, but you haven't seen any bugs.
What new blasphemy is this? And I'll go there. Only one way to find out, and I'll take my sword and can kind of pierce the oilcloth and try and pull it off of the pit, so I can kind of get
the oilcloth itself you could pull off the pit.
I won't touch it.
Well, you flip it back, you can see the bodies, and there's definitely an odd reaction when you flip it back. You hear a sudden increase in the slithering, and then dead silence.
Slithering intensifies.
I will. They're dead bodies. I've seen lots of dead bodies before, so I'm going to stab down like into the stomach because that's where I would expect movement in a dead body, where gases and things build up. And so,
isn't this pit deep though?
Not particularly, maybe 3 feet deep.
Oh, okay.
The bodies are laid out next to one another in an orderly fashion.
Got it. Okay. I was picturing a much deeper pit. Okay. That makes sense then.
You can also guess that, respect for the dead is what people have. So they've been laid out respectfully.
Right.
That,
The few bodies that still have their skins are laid out with their hands crossed like this. But the ones without skins, their arms are disarranged for some reason. And still there's this slimy sound starts to come back, though it's more prevalent under where the tarp still remains on top of the bodies.
do we have a Pelham slung over our shoulder?
I'm sorry,
or like
we lost
our
you for
short
a second.
spears that we usually carry?
We lost you for a
sure.
second.
Do we have like a Pelham or a short spear that we carry? A spear? Do we have a spear?
If you brought them with you, sure.
Okay. I mean, just like on regular campaign, we'd ordinarily have probably a Pelham or two slung. So yeah, I'll take the tip and then peel it further back to try to reveal where we think it is.
When you hear that, the sound, definitely you can identify that it moves away from where you uncover to where it's still a little covered up. This is a long trench. You're probably at this point counting somewhere near how many bodies? Like 32 bodies at this point.
Yeah. It doesn't like the light, Emmerich. It's pulling away as we move the oilcloth. It must be some type of nocturnal creature.
Yeah. Should we just let it be? But
no. We came here to solve the issue. Let us deal with the lead that we have. Let's move the oilcloth completely from this pit.
All right, I'll just carry along, walk down the side of the trench with my Pelham tip stuck in the tarp, pulling it along.
Do a spot hidden for me.
Spot hidden. Here we go. Let's see.
Both of us?
Holy
sure.
cow,
Yeah, you're both.
Fire. 19. Jeez.
Well, I passed, but not that well.
So the bodies are lying in the pit. There is something right at the very bottom of the ditch that seems to be moving underneath the bodies, because when it does, you can see the bodies shift a little bit as it sort of pushes them out of the way. And at a glance, who got you both saw?
We both passed, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Did you get a hard?
19 is. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, that is a hard. Yeah.
What you see underneath slithering is a human skin.
Jesus.
As if the body were removed, it was just the skin. It's slimy and sliding over itself and attempting to get out of the direct light.
What in the name of... Stab it. Try and pin it down.
Yeah, I'll try to jab it with the Pelham.
Okay. Because you can see it, because it's trying to get away, you jab it with the end of your spear. And when you do, the body that's on top of it suddenly rolls over to the side as this human skin. It looks like a woman's skin with no eyes and just a hole where the mouth is. It rises up and it's as if the fingertips have been uh, somehow fused to make points, and it raises up like a monster and it swipes at you.
Oh shit!
Do you want to attack or
Well, yeah,
damage?
the immediate response would be to just like, yeah, swing at it with a long ranged weapon.
Okay.
Is that possible?
Well, you've
I
got
don't
it
want it.
speared,
Yeah.
so you've kind of pinned it down. Um, it failed anyway to hit you. What do you do, Belisir?
uh, well, I'm going to try and immediately. It looks like its hands are dangerous. I'm going to try and sever the hands from it.
Okay, go ahead and swing.
Come on. Oh yeah. 47 in my short sword, so that is a regular.
Okay, you hit it, and your sword is sharp. Go ahead and do damage.
Oh, 10 max.
Okay. You pretty much you pretty much slice it in half. It flails about for a moment. You can see that it's not just a mouth hole either. The skin on the lips and has split and sort of formed itself into like sharp, like the way the fingers did, into sharpness. So it almost looks like teeth. Um, but as you slice it in half, it writhes on the ground for a few moments. Um, and perhaps Emmerich pulls it out into the direct sunlight. And as he does, the thing twitches for a bit and then it just sort of flops dead.
Good God.
Oh,
Sanity checks?
Yeah, you can do
Yeah.
sanity checks.
Oh, God. There's where I fail. Yep, 94.
that's a pass on my end.
Okay. Just take, actually do a 1d4 if you fail. Just take one if you didn't.
Okay.
Nice.
Come on. There we go.
Now,
Not.
the rest of you, you were in the tent. Um, oh, you were heading towards the refugee tent. So that's actually farther away. Um, so nobody notices what's going on outside the tent at the moment. Um, so, anyways, Belisir and Emmerich, this thing, uh, it 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 just flops there on the ground and it doesn't seem to move again. But you can't imagine how it was actually animated. It's got no bones or muscles.
Yeah. The obviously the work of demons. This maybe this Satan cult is more to it than we initially gave it credence.
Satan. Agreed.
And it's fairly obvious that whatever it is going off into the woods was made by this or something like it.
Uh,
Let's let's follow the trail for a bit, but let's shorten up how far we were planning to travel. I don't like the thought of being caught out here with just the two of us.
yes. Yes. Especially with the amount of daylight left. So.
When you get to the edge of the woods, you can't really follow it anymore. You've got a general direction towards the east.
Mm-hmm.
But you find that if you want to track, it might still be possible, but it's going to be very slow going because you have to go a bit to see if you can find any evidence of blood or
Right.
whatever in the underbrush. It's now under the bushes and under the underbrush, so it's hard to follow.
I'll mark a couple trees with my sword. That way, when I come back, I can kind of go, okay, it was headed in this general direction.
It's definitely headed in the direction of the villages.
Yeah, okay. Let's let's report to the others and Hopefully they don't think that we're in the sun too long.
Or at least both of us have seen it, so it has more
Hmm.
credibility.
So Galerius, you're heading in to the refugee town. So, well, who all is with you going into the?
I've taken Melonius.
Okay, and Doctor, I'm Doctor Asinius. What are you doing, Medicus
Uh,
Asinius?
I'm probably going to follow him in a bit, but before that, go over finer details, asking about what, plants he's put on the victims and, if there's anything other than opium that has been of any efficacious nature and so on.
In general, he's baffled, and he's also, very cautious. Like he doesn't know whether something's going to make it worse or better. So at the moment, most of what he's done is just get them knocked out if the pain gets too bad. You also get a good look at some of the victims in various stages,
What
and
do
it's
the
pretty bad.
what do the spinal wounds look like?
Well, it looks like in the early stages, they seem to just be getting regular sores on their spine. These get, they look, you would say they're almost infected looking. They get pussy, and they slowly grow together to make a split down the back. Um, and then once they're dead, you probably don't see a dead one at that moment, but at some point during the day, probably somebody dies and that splits open and their skin seems to lose its attachment to the muscles underneath.
And when they're said to become lunatic in the process, do they have any common themes in their madness?
They seem to it seems to be that they think that something's coming
Mhm.
and they become paranoid and they just writhe about at that point. They're pretty far gone. That's usually about the time the doctor gives them sedatives.
So yeah, I'll spend. He's probably been on his feet a lot. I'll spend some time distributing opium juice to the assembled, and
Okay.
you may ask some questions about if among the more lucid ones, if they've seen robed people or were given a particular warning, but
Yeah,
over a
they
period of
will.
time.
Um, okay. Yeah. Okay. So Galerius and Melonius, you guys go in to talk to the refugees. Um, they are not, these are not the ones that are infected. So you go up and talk to them. Um, so there's a man standing there or sitting there that they all look beaten down. Their mental state is not, their morale is destroyed at this point.
Hail.
Hail.
Where are you from?
I'm from nearby, the nearby town. I lost my place.
Lucky.
Alaki. Okay, we'll be from Alaki. I'm from Alaki. Uh,
Okay, how long have you been at the outpost?
we got here about a week ago. Um, just trying to get away from everything that's in that direction. The disease, the scary cultists. We don't know much about it, but we think that it's actually spread by these cultists. They call themselves the Flayed.
Mhm. Have you ever seen their faces or the locals
I don't
radicalized into
know.
some sort of satanic cult?
Um, yeah, I did see a man. I mean, I don't recognize him, but they're they're humans, but they might be possessed by the devil.
How would when they would visit the villages uh, to make their demands and threats? What did they say? How many of them were there?
They wouldn't tell us how many there were, and they just threatened us. Uh, at first, it was keep our mouths shut about their existence, but you know how that goes in a village. Lots of rumors run around, and they attacked us in the night. There were things that were with them, bat-like things that attacked us.
All small.
Well, kind of like the size of children.
Hmm.
I
It
think that
is odd.
this plague is caused by, you know, the bites of these things.
That seems reasonable enough. When they attacked your village at night, how many humans were there attacking you?
I don't know. It was pure panic. People ran for their lives. People shut up their houses and barred their windows and doors and eventually just stopped. It was terrifying. Um, at this point, a few other people start to join in, adding to the story. So they all agree dying that way is horrible. Some say that it's a punishment sent from God as a sign of the coming apocalypse. Um, those who survived the plague, they say, they're not the same anymore. Their souls are gone. Their souls have been eaten by the devil. Um, some say that that's all nonsense and that it's just a new form of rabies that's being transmitted. Um,
Again, do any of them have any kind of count? Like how many of them would come to a village? How many of them attack the village?
some say a dozen, some say, more, and that their numbers are growing day by day. But they all act like lunatics, and they all mutilate themselves in devotion to the devil. Um,
Ah,
Hmm.
some of them tell you that they're Gothic slaves that have escaped, um, that fled into the mountains and started their own community. They're heretics, they're murderers, warlocks, witches. They've been granted dark powers by making pacts with the devil. Um, the cults have demanded food from the villages. They've threatened to ruin the crops. They've or they've threatened to spread the disease further. Um, they think that the bats are controlled by the cult specifically so that they can spread the disease. Um, one of the one of the people says that they have a hidden temple dedicated to Satan that they worship, and some of this sounds more far fetched than other bits, but you're getting a whole lot of it. Um, and some whisper to you that the provincial government, the members of the provincial government, must be members of the cult. Um, the flayed drink the blood and they eat the flesh of humans, being a perversion of communion, the Last Supper.
hmm.
Uh, there are rumors of strange creatures. Um, the whole plague was started by a demonic bat, a huge eyeless, wide-mouthed fiend that escaped from the fires of hell to feed on the blood of the living by night. People have seen ghosts, like living burial shrouds. They come slithering out of the darkness to drink blood. Blood drinking madmen roam the mountains at night. Uh, these creatures aren't demons. They're not ghosts. They're the risen dead. Um, the monsters serve the flayed, and the bite of a creature causes Valerian plague. The creatures seem to be afraid of the light, and the creatures can be warded off by displaying Constantine's sign, the hero, or reciting the Lord's Prayer. Those are all the things that you get from all these
That's quite
rumors.
a lot.
It is a lot.
I have a feeling that hopefully when our two scouts come back, they'll have something to tell us that will help
Yes.
make sense of all this.
Yes, we definitely need some more context.
This is but I'll tell people you know, we'll start getting actually, I was gonna say, if they think anybody's suspicious, let us know. But I
Uh,
don't want to end up in a crucible situation where everybody's just accusing everybody else for
do do any of them know anyone who might have joined the cult? I would ask that too.
it's a good question, yeah.
Nobody would join that cult. They're devil worshippers.
No, I mean obviously people are joining the cult. I mean
People
how
are
it
joining.
they're people it's
No, they're
all
all
right.
escaped slaves.
Has anyone who you're close to gone missing recently? Not one of the deceased, not someone that could have ran away and maybe joined them. Someone who had been acting strangely.
There's there's a number of them who talk about children going missing, but they're sure that the children were killed. And of course, they've also got members of their family who are either sick with the plague or were killed. Um, that
There
there are
any
bodies everywhere.
are there any survivors in the refugee camp of the plague? I know they all
Yes,
survived attacks, but I want to
yes.
speak with these soulless
Well, that's just the thing. Their families are very nervous around them. Some of them try to act like normal, but these superstitions seem to have gotten the better of them. However, the people that you speak to that have had the plague, though they're still covered in sores, the sores are now on the healing side. The the sores on their back are starting to pull themselves together. They tell you that the pain was terrible, um, that they seem to see things in their dreams, in their hallucinations, monsters and beasts and blood everywhere. Everything was red. Their color is red. It seems to be the color of the cultists.
interesting. They seem talkative, normal,
They do, but traumatized.
traumatized, yeah. So
Mm.
Dr. Asinius, Medicus Asinius, you are helping to distribute um, some of the poppies. You come across one particular victim. Um, he is in a great deal of pain, and he's he's pretty far into it at this point. Um, and when you come up to him, you can see his eyes are bloodshot. There's a kind of expressionlessness, um, as if part of the connective tissue between skin and body is dissolving, as far as you know. He doesn't look good, and as you come up, he in his delirium he goes, "Please, please, Father, bless him. Please help me. Forgive me for my sins. Don't let them take me. I can hear them." And he reaches out quickly and grips your hand that's got whatever you're administrating. He's got it like this. He's got a pretty strong grip. Um, and he continues, help me, please, please forgive my sins. Uh,
What can you do? What can you tell me, my son?
I don't want them to take me, please.
Who would you fear?
The devil's coming for us all. He's going to kill us and eat our skins and eat our flesh uh
Tell,
and he's got a good he's gripping your wrist very tightly,
uh
painfully almost.
tell me your sins, so you may be forgiven.
Uh, I I didn't fast on the Wednesday. They and I've treated my family not as good as I can, and he begins to sort of convulse.
Mm.
What would you like to do?
I would like to tip this poppy juice into his mouth. So maybe an opposed strength. I don't want
Okay.
to injure him any further, but oh well, I rolled a 96. Never mind. That's
Okay.
not
Well,
nothing.
as he's gripping you, and you make your attempt to pull away, there's a kind of a, a slippage,
Mhm.
and he's unable to keep his grip on you because the skin on his arm and his hand um, slides loose. And as you pull away, the skin splits like at the shoulder, and he screams very loudly, and he slumps back, and his skin just starts to peel off his body as he shakes in a seizure and then stops moving. And as he stops moving, this black vomit comes out of his mouth, um, and all over the bed, and he is dead.
I'll have a little sanity roll then.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I narrowly made that.
Okay.
One.
So one d4. So one point you
Mhm.
lose.
Yeah, and I'll find that Brax. They probably have some sort of canvas prepared to roll these things onto with all the.
Yes. In fact, two of his assistants immediately come over to you, and they offer you like some wet cloths to wipe yourself off with,
Yeah.
and they wrap him in what's left of that sort of canvas shroud that he was laying on. Um, and they look at you and they're like, it's horrible. Um,
Have either of you been working with them long? You've stayed uninfected?
we're here with the Doctor Abraxas. Um, we're his assistants, Pilatos and Christianos. We'll take the body. We'll put it in the pit
It's good to
with
meet
that.
you. I'm Asinius. Let's not get this. It seems worse than anything.
It's horrible. Yes. And they once they've wrapped the body up, they take either end and they take it out to the pit, which oddly has had the canvas pulled back from it. So they put the body in there and they cover up the canvas. Are you guys? You
May
guys aren't still out there, are you? You're coming back.
Yeah, we were coming back. Yeah.
Okay. So they pass you, and you see them adding this, and then they cover the pit up. It's
Is
pretty horrific. You can see that the skin on that body was falling off of it too.
The skin must be destroyed before you throw it in the pit.
We we can't do that. The doctor has ordered that we don't know what to do with the bodies right now. We can't burn them because we think the smoke might be infectious.
The doctor hasn't seen what we have seen. We must speak to the Dr. Emmerich and convince him of the right path.
Okay. Well, we'll assume at that point you all sort of come together with the doctor.
Yes.
Well, I don't remember the doctor's name.
Abraxas.
Abraxas. I guess I hadn't met him, so I wouldn't have known it anyway.
You could find me looking real green, having some watery wine at the edge of the medical tent.
Abraxas, I have seen the pit where the bodies are, and more horrifically, I've seen something come out of the pit.
Unnatural.
Oh, what do you mean?
The skin of a woman rose from there and attacked us.
I'm surprised. More ghost stories?
I wish it
We had to
was.
fight it off. It seemed to not like the sunlight when it was
He
brought.
looks at you. He looks at you very carefully and puts his hand on your forehead.
Mhm.
You don't feel hot.
Abraxas, I have known Emmerich and Belisir for going on 20 years. They are stout and reasonable men. I don't know what they saw, but we should take it seriously.
The devil's work afoot here, definitely.
I have enough work here myself. If there's some threat, then take care of it.
Perhaps there's some parasite that is what separates the flesh from the muscle beneath, and that is capable of motion after.
I've seen no sort of insect or creature inside. In fact, as I've told you, insects seem to avoid the bodies.
Yeah, so you'd think this place would be thick with flies. It's unnatural, certainly.
Yeah. I mean, things moving after they're dead is not unheard of. Chickens often move after they've been killed. But
that skin had an intelligence to it.
Yeah,
it fought us.
I'm sorry. I've got too much to do. I don't have time for this.
I understand.
Let's find the others, Belisir, Emmerich.
Yes.
You've all come together now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we heard. Oh, sorry, we heard a lot of tales from these refugees.
Anything credible?
It's what remains consistent is there's a large number of cultists who come and threaten and attack. There seems to be at least a dozen of them, if not more. But they're all these attacks, they are always accompanied by small animals described as bat-like. They could be in a panic dogs or something, but they have some. I don't know how much credence we give to devil escape from hell, but there are. I get the strong impression that there is an animal presence with these cultists that they use in their assault. There are also reports of ghosts, of funeral shrouds that walk on their own at night and drink blood. That seems to be, I don't know where that fits in though.
Belisir and Emmerich. That thing sort of, I mean, it still looked like a person, but it was kind of.
Yeah. That could easily be our shroud.
Yeah.
Yes, I would like. I mean, I trained you both. I have capabilities in you, your experience, and discipline I've instilled within you, I hope. I would
Yes.
like to see this one of these skin shroud ghosts for myself. There was a body, Asinius, you said, who was just taken.
Yeah, the man just died very horribly.
Well, let's go. How about we go wait for his skin to start walking?
Right. I I think without encouragement, we will have to wait till nighttime. When it seemed to flee as we moved the oil skin out of the
Well,
way.
actually, that man just died and these things move. As insane as this all sounds, what if we, as you said, wait till nightfall, but we follow it, see where it goes.
Yeah,
But that
there was a trail and headed off, but if we could follow it, it'd be easier than trying to track this trail through the woods.
I'm not sure though how quickly one dying and the separation of the skin would occur. I'm not sure. Is that immediate within a day, or it might take a few days?
Asinius thinks, didn't the man's skin already detach while you were there for his last moments?
The 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 integuments between the flesh and the muscle are definitely weakened, but it might uh, be the first stage of a longer process. I mean, the skin was very much not alive when it came off his arm.
I mean, obviously, there's no way we could know how long it would take. There's no
So,
scroll that would be written that has documented this.
so we can wait at night, see if the skin does emerge off of this most recent man's body and follow it.
Or an
If
older one.
not, or another one. But I
Yeah,
think what we should have the doctor and the garrison start to do is stake the bodies to the ground.
Oh,
That
I
way,
mean,
that way it will pin the skin.
yes.
unless it just tears around the puncture. But
It
still, it's a
might
good
do
idea.
that. It might do that, Emmerich, but that seems to be the most reasonable step because they don't want to bury them. They don't want to burn them.
Yeah.
The least we can get them to do is stake the bodies down.
Something we noticed before we encountered the skin which attacked us, we heard uh, we heard it slithering and moving about. So
We might hear
perhaps,
this man's skin doing the
yeah,
same before. Yes, that's a good idea, Emmerich. And if anybody asks for justification of staking them down, and they don't, we don't have to say that it's to prevent that skin from going away, but we could be express some concern about wild dogs dragging the corpses off.
yeah,
Yeah,
Oh,
We
and
want to,
spreading disease more.
yeah.
Plus, correct me if I'm wrong, Keeper, we outrank most of the people here.
You do.
they may be
Plus
superstitious.
Corvus Tilius
Yeah,
can take charge of the combat.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
we could just,
Yeah, I want the corpses staked down.
I think we might start that, but I don't think there's any reason not to start burning them because indeed that man's the sick that I saw had multiple lesions in them. They wouldn't have entirely coherent skins. They might be holy and patchy, and a single stake wouldn't be any great addition to this
That's
distressed and broken condition of their
I
flesh.
trust your medical judgment here, Asinius. If you don't
Yeah.
believe that the smoke will spread it, I trust you more than these superstitious hypes.
Abraxas seems very intelligent, but well, let's
It,
see.
the people who have survived these attacks, everyone who has fallen ill has been bitten by these animals that the cult keeps. That's another consistency.
mm,
So it's not a miasma. It doesn't spread through the air. It's
So Tilius listens very carefully to everything we say. And he says, it seems to me we can assign a number of soldiers to pin the bodies down, as you say. Um, but I am also very concerned with what's going on farther east. We still have a few hours of daylight. Perhaps we should do that and then travel and see what we find. You say the slithering trail is heading in that direction anyway.
Yes.
But I I deeply respect your opinion. What do you think?
I think we need to, if the reports that I've been getting from the refugees are true, and as Balasar and Emmerich have experienced, if the bodies present a posthumous threat somehow through their skin, they need to be dealt with. Because if we're going to travel east, I don't want things from that pit ambushing us from behind us.
Well, I like the idea of staking them down.
Let's stake them down then.
Excellent.
So he gives orders for that to occur. Um, uh, some people are a little uh, worried that it's kind of disrespectful, but the order is given, and once the order is given, they do not argue with it. And so you are thus freed up. You're told that you should be able to reach the closest village, in probably under an hour. The villages after that, they're maybe an hour apart each, and you still have quite a bit of daylight left. So at that point, let's jump back to the 1920s and see what your characters have to say as you drink your tea and hold your from reading this.
Again, something that I've studying the religiosity of this cult. The Brotherhood of the Skin, their obsession with laying the skinless one, the body without skin, is old. It's a through line from the Roman Empire.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
It is indeed. Fascinating.
I'm starting to get Gunther's getting a little nervous because he's been having some reactions on his torso, and I almost without thinking start reaching back and feeling on my spine, hoping I don't feel a
You don't.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But you still do get these
bullet wound.
Yeah, irritations.
Correlation of the skinless one.
So this it's almost as if this is a proto cult, and that Sedefkar later, either Sedefkar is somehow artificially extended his life and is a member of this Roman cult, or the Roman cult survived in a way to Sedefkar, who made the simulacrum.
Yes, it's possible that their ways, even if they died out early on, passed on to Sedefkar and future.
It seems that these Roman fellows are not going to be terribly successful, as we're still dealing with the survival of this group.
Well, they are successful to the extent that the beginnings of New Rome or Constantinople or Istanbul survived this outbreak. If the Sedefkar leper is the only holdout of this culture, or a later individual who found some text of theirs, it is a reemergence, say, of an older infection, to use a medical metaphor.
So they were successful to a certain extent of beating it back.
Yeah, and someone survived to chronicle the events, so.
Indeed.
I believe Tilius Corvus.
Yeah. At least. We don't have to
Yes,
assume it was
please.
only he.
Well, it'd be interesting to find out more about what happened.
All right, and with that, we will end it for tonight. Our players included Morgan Llewellyn, David Gassaway, Stuart Lively, Keith Craig, and Josh Harwood, with yours truly as the Keeper of Arcane Lore. We have a Discord server where you can chat with other members, you can set up private games, you can learn the finer arts of gameplay and game mastery. We provide audio-only versions of our shows free for you to download from Spotify, Podbean, or iTunes. If you'd like to help support our show, please visit our Patreon account. Just $1 or $2 a month helps a lot. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and punch the bell icon for updates on our latest shows. And leave us some comments. We enjoy reading them and answering any questions you might have. This is Tom Rayleigh, together with all the members of our gaming club, inviting you to journey with us once again into the darkness for another adventure into the universe of H.P. Lovecraft and the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. Until next time, good luck, good gaming.